Embarking on chapter 2. So now that the Rambam, in the first chapter, ended off with this Shvil Hazahav, this middle path, this middle of the road, fair, balanced, however you want to call it. Now we have to discuss, what if you're not? Meaning, how do you correct your ills? All right, what's the therapy necessary for someone who's suffering from this mania? Right? How do we fix that person? So the Rambam starts off interestingly by saying in chapter 2, Chole Haguf Toamim Hamar Matok V'Hamatok Mar. So he compares it to someone who's sick. Now, I don't think this is necessarily true today, but 1,000 years ago, I could certainly understand the Rambam, obviously being a doctor. He says people who are sick, so something that is naturally bitter would taste sweet, and vice versa. And sweet tastes bitter. Okay, that's how he opens up his description of opposites, right? And how do we deal with someone who's on one side of the spectrum, okay, and he has to get to the other side, okay, because he's a kitzoni. How do we deal with kitzonim? So the Rambam says, V'yesh min hacholim, mishe mis'ave v'ta'ev l'macholos she'enam ru'uyin l'achila. Then there are people, right, who are sick and they need to eat. So because of their sickness, Rambam says, they eat things that are abnormal. They'll start eating mud and dirt and glue and wallpaper shavings. All right, weird stuff. She'enan ru'in lachila, ki on afar v'hapecham, v'sona ha'machalas tovim. And if you offer him, cooked food and vegetables and chicken soup and all the normal things that people like to eat, they wouldn't take it. So they hate normal food and they love abnormal food. So the Rambam is building up to, like, what does that have to do with anything, right? So what the Rambam's point is, he's comparing people who are living in a bizarro world, right? Like the Gemara says in Ksuvas, right? When Rabbi Shua went up, he saw elyonim tachtonim v'tachtonim elyonim. Things that are, right? Everything is an upside down world. So people...
Olam hafuch ra'iti.
Olam hafuch ra'iti, right. Elyonim tachtonim v'tachtonim elyonim. So there are people who live, unfortunately, in a psychological... dysphoric, whatever the word is, just completely, whacked out. And they're all the way on the other side of the pendulum. So says the Rambam, what is the proper therapy? Kach b'nei adam shenafshosehen cholos. People who are not physically ill, but the other illness that we don't really talk about a lot, right? There's physical, there's mental illness, and then, unfortunately, the third category that doesn't get enough attention are the souls that need rehabilitation. All right? Their souls are thirsty for rehab. So how do we deal with those people? Kach b'nei adam shenafshosem cholos mis'avim v'ohavim hadeos haros v'sonim haderech hatova. People whose souls are contorted and disfigured because they love bad things and they hate, right? Right? They're all mixed up, right? They love the bad traits and they hate the good traits. They're living in this dystopia, right? But they're just lazy at the end of the day. They don't want to get better. And they're literally sick. Their souls are on fire. Wow. What do you think, Deborah? Impressive, huh? I got a good crowd. V'chen Yeshayahu omer banashim halalu. And the prophet Isaiah screams out at these people. I sound like a preacher. And says, Hoi ha'omrim lara tov v'lo tov ra. Samim choshech la'or v'or l'choshech. Right? Woe to these people who pervert everything. They say unto bad that is good, and unto good that is bad. They misplace darkness for light and light for darkness. Samim mar lamatok umatok lamar. Everything to them is all what we call today screwed up. They're living in a screwed up world. Okay? V'aleim nemar. And furthermore, the pasuk in Mishlei says, all the way in the beginning, in the 7th chapter, ha'ozvin archos yosher laleches b'darchei choshech. Those people that leave the straight path and they wander off in their many perambulations to the land of darkness. Umahi takanat choli hanafashos. So as they say in Yiddish, tochas afam tish, right? At the end of the day, how do we rehabilitate these people? How do we rehabilitate these people who are suffering, whose souls are suffering from this?
Wait. Tuchus up and tish. That means tuchus on the table.
Yeah, it means like the bottom line.
Tuchus is on the table.
Yeah, you never heard that? Oh, it's a
I
thing
heard.
that
I never thought about it.
I'm not telling you to think about it, just accept it. Yeah, it's a very popular Yiddish phrase. I'm sure the Cup family knows about it. Maybe not the one in Brickell. But so new, as they say, Lamaisa, how do we rehabilitate these wayward souls? You know what the answer is? It's a very controversial answer because today, in today's day and age, it will never fly. No one can get away with this today. Because what the Rambam is saying is Yelchu etzel hachachamim shehen rofe hanefashot v'yirapu cholyam badeos shemelamden osam ad sheyachzirum l'derech hatova. You've heard of conversion camps? I figured you'd like that one. This is the conversion camp of 1,000 years ago. All right? Basically, hey, you're going to get better whether you like it or not, and it's going to be cold turkey. Okay, today, when you go to a psychologist, let's say you have a phobia of snakes. So I think I learned this in psychology class in YU. So what do they tell you to do? Well, first, go slowly. First, look at a picture of a snake and see if you could deal with it. Okay, I'm not telling you to get a pet snake. Go online, see a picture of a snake for a second, and then turn away. Could you handle that? If the answer is yes, then okay, the next step. Go to a zoo, stand 50 feet back and see it through a thick glass cage. Can you handle that? And slowly, you take 10 steps until you could actually be in the same room with a snake around your neck. But you can't do it on day one. All right? That's where this controversy lies, is that the Rambam is saying, you have a problem, okay? We have to go cold turkey and go right away to the other side, meaning you're veering on the right, you're on the highway, right? You're all the way on the right shoulder. If you want to correct yourself, you got to go all the way to the left shoulder, bypassing the middle of the striped lines. Okay? So that's what the Rambam's about to say. Yelchu etzel chachamim shehen rofe hanafashos v'yirapu chelyam b'deos shemalamden osan ad sheyachzirum laderech hatova. Right, you got to go to the chachamim, right? Check into yeshivas Elimelech because they are the rofe hanafashot. Right, you heard of doctors? These are the soul doctors. They fix your soul, and they will guide you to teach you what the proper path is. And those people who skip the yeshiva and they don't seek the words of the wise and completely bypass this type of therapy, says Shlomo in Mishlei in the beginning, Chachma umusar evelim bazu. Evelim are fools. Fools disregard chachma and musar. So this person is a fool. That's where the word foolish comes from. A fool. All right. So the Rambam gives a general outline. Now let's talk about how you practically do this. The Rambam's going to give you a perfect example. Again, very, very controversial. The Ketzad he refuasan. What is the therapy? What is this conversion therapy that we call today? Mishahu bal chema, someone who is right, and the Rambam always uses this as an example, right? Anger is a really big thing that the Rambam is against. So someone who is very, very quick to get angry. So what do you do? Omrim lo lahanig atzmo she'im hukah v'kula lo yargish klal. So you go to the complete other extreme and you tease him. And you say, okay, you have to train yourself to be absolutely calm and still if someone pisses you off, right? If someone curses you, if someone hits you, right, we're going to test you. You have to be perfectly constrained. You have to hold yourself back. Okay? V'yelech b'derech zu zman meruba. And you got to continue this therapy, this practice for a very, very long time, until somehow, I don't know how, to be honest, until this trait completely gets removed from his heart. And he's so used to being cool as a cucumber, right, that he becomes a different person. He changes. Can you imagine if they did this today, right, with politicians? V'imhaya gvalev, a person is, let's say, the other example the Rambam gives is people who are haughty, a big shot, very, very prideful. So what do you do to someone who is very, very prideful and walks around thinking like he's $1,000,000? So what do? You make him drive a Chevy Impala for a month, right? And see how he feels. Okay, that's what the Rambam says. Let him be in a disgrace. V'yeshev lamata min hakol. Let him sit underneath everything in the lowest place. V'yilbash b'luye sechavos, right? And wear basically shmatas all day, right? Take off your Zenya suit and your Ferragamo shoes, okay? And wear shmatas all day long, okay? And see how you feel. Hamavados eslav sheyan, the kind of clothing that disgraces those who wear it. Ukayotze bedvarim elu ad sheyakar go v'halev mimenu v'yachzor derech emtzayis shu derech hatova. So he says basically go to the other extreme, and almost like statistically you'll be averaged. Again, if you compare this to, like I always compare everything to sports, like a hitter's in a slump, right? And he's been striking out all the time and he could barely hit the ball. So you basically tell him to swing for the fences and start hitting home runs. And sooner or later, he's going to average out to hitting singles. Right? That's like what the Rambam is trying to say. But the problem is, I can't think of anyone who, at least today, who would employ this kind of therapy. It doesn't really, meaning because the Rambam is talking like theoretical, again, like you have a cup of freezing water and you have a cup of boiling water. Both are really bad. You could die by not die. It's uncomfortable to drink the ice cold water, and it's uncomfortable to eat the boiling water, right? But what do you do if you're on one side? So most people would say, well, just wait for the cold water to warm up a little and wait for the boiling water to cool down a little. But the Rambam says, no, you got to go to the complete other side, see how that feels, and then gradually it'll go back to the middle. Okay? I think that's what this is what this compromise that the Rambam is preaching. The Rambam ends off by saying that when you do return and you've been successful in this therapy, it should stick with you for a while because you're going to remember how bad the left extreme was. And then when you went to the right extreme, right, you kind of like after that petered back into the middle and, like the law of averages says you're going to go back to somewhere in the middle between the left and the right. Right? And you should do this not just to anger and to haughtiness. Every single trait applies the same way. Don't go to the middle, Rambam says. He's saying it again as a summary. Go right to the other extreme, okay? V'yinhog bo zman rav, and see what it feels like to be over there. Until you, again, until the law of averages takes over, and you're going to go back to that middle after a certain amount of time. And that's true for every single day. How do you like that?